Il est rare de ne pas se souvenir de sa première peur de femme, de la première fracture dans le mythe d'une égalité proclamée et peu réalisée. Certaines n'ont eu à comprendre qu'elles étaient déjà des femmes qu'adolescentes, avec la puberté et les regards portés sur elles. La peur amène les femmes à adopter des conduites d'hypervigilance avec des déplacements moindres que les hommes, sur des horaires plus restreints, une surveillance plus étroite de leur tenue et des bruits de pas derrière elles. L'apparition de la peur, du doute déchire le mythe de l'égalité déjà là.
The male gaze in fashion, for me, is about the male pleasure. It's always about the female body, and it's about objectification of the female body. Yeah, it's a very specific point of view, how the female body is observed by male.
Basically, everything is so objectified and sexualized, and you don't really find any character anymore in the fashion photography. It's just about woman body. It's just about how you perceive just the object, not as if it's a character and it has even soul inside of it.
So when you think about how to define the male gaze in fashion, we need to think about the origin of the term. The origin of the concept of the male gaze comes from an article by Laura Mulvey called Visual Pleasures and Narrative Cinema. So the male gaze as a concept originated with 1970s feminists who were concerned about the way that film media, film technology was used in a manner that objectified women. So the male gaze was likened to the way the gaze of the camera took in the female form and treated the female form in a manner that made it appear in pieces, that made it appear as an object to be surveyed, that made women seem to be the focus of and goal of male activity in a passive stance.
Le male gaze, pour elle, il est fondé sur un triple regard, celui des personnages, celui qui peut être ou non relayé dans le film, et celui du réalisateur ensuite. Donc ça, en fait, il va reposer ce male gaze sur un concept de psychanalyse qui s'appelle la scopophilie. C'est le plaisir de voir et même d'être voyeur, de reluquer. Et donc, elle étudie, par exemple, Fenêtre sur cour, la façon dont des personnages vont espionner, notamment des femmes. Elle étudie comment le cinéma, en favorisant la scopophilie, en fait, imagine un spectateur modèle, qui est pas spécialement un modèle du genre ou un modèle moral, hein, qui est celui qui est imaginé pour réaliser les films, c'est-à-dire un spectateur plutôt hétérosexuel et assez voyeur, puisqu'on est sur un art visuel. Et donc, la grande force de Mulvey, c'est de montrer comment il peut y avoir des mouvements de caméra, une objectification par l'esthétique du film, par l'histoire du film aussi, qui va objectifier les femmes en faisant des hommes plutôt des sujets de l'action.
So if we think of the origin of the male gaze in film studies and film technologies, then it's a pretty easy leap to the technologies of cameras and image making for fashion. We can see the connection between the female body being presented as something to be surveyed, to be looked at. And when we think about the male gaze in fashion, looking at the photography of the 1950s, for instance, Again, we have the male auteur who's creating the image, and the model is his muse. The model is his object of artistic expression. She may collaborate or participate with him, but it is his image that he's creating according to his desire or how he wants her to look.
Évidemment que l'idéologie dominante nous modèle et que le male gaze peut s'intérioriser évidemment pour des femmes. Et en fait, le male gaze, ce n'est pas les hommes contre les femmes, c'est l'idéologie patriarcale qui objectifie les femmes, mais dont les femmes peuvent aussi se faire le relais et dont les hommes peuvent s'échapper. Je m'appelle Azélie Fayol, je suis chercheuse en littérature féministe. J'ai écrit il y a maintenant 1 an un livre qui s'appelle Des femmes et du style pour un féministe gaze qui est sorti chez Divergence. Et j'essaie d'étudier comment pensent, comment écrivent, comment les féministes d'un long 19e siècle vont se révolter et inventer des manières de se révolter par le féminisme.
My name is Shai Batandust. I am 25 years old, photographer from Iran, living in Berlin. And yeah. I've been doing portraits and fashion photography. I'm still doing it, trying to get more into street photography at the moment and try to see the real challenges in street and real life rather than everything in a cube that someone else made it for me. Yeah.
I also met Esther Pavant. She's an artist, but above all, she's a Berlin-based fashion designer. Her fashion is an act of gender-neutral post-feminism, putting personality, autonomy, and individuality at the center of her creations, which are always black, because as she says, black is colorful.
My name is Elizabeth Wissinger. I am the author of 8 academic book chapters and 16 academic papers in journals ranging from fashion studies to economics to sociology to media studies to feminist studies. And I teach master's students in the fashion studies section of the Masters of Arts and Liberal Studies at the Graduate Center. And I teach undergraduates at BMCC in sociology.
Le male gaze, en fait, il est une façon de réduire les femmes à leur apparence. Pour une part, mais ça va être en fait de voir comment les femmes objectifiées ne sont pas seulement exploitées pour les services qu'elles vont rendre, par exemple de tout ce qui va être de l'ordre du travail reproductif, mais aussi évaluées selon des critères de désirabilité, c'est-à-dire est-ce qu'on a ou pas envie de faire l'amour avec, est-ce qu'on a ou pas envie de se promener avec une femme belle ou telle femme à son bras. Donc en fait, c'est un marqueur social, autant qu'un plaisir spécifique. Et à ce titre-là, il y a des évolutions très nettes qui sont notamment dues aux techniques de production et de reproduction de l'image, c'est-à-dire que le male gaze, globalement, on le voit à peu près tout le temps, et on a dans la littérature libertine, comme dans les tableaux libertins du XVIIIe siècle, beaucoup de jeux de cachets, dévoilés, de regards en douce, de voyeurisme. On les trouve dans les tableaux de Fragonard. On va le trouver aussi dans des romans franchement libertins comme ceux de Crébillon-Fils, Le Sofa, Le Point du Jour, où il y a des jeux de dévoilement physique, mais aussi stylistique. La société actuelle vient d'une spectacularisation accrue qui est liée aux moyens de production et qui a influé sur à peu près tout. Un exemple qui peut paraître assez parlant, ou visuel justement, assez frappant, c'est celui de Nana d'Émile Zola, parce que Nana, c'est une comédienne qui va se montrer, et il y a des jeux scéniques de lumière pour que, alors qu'elle arrive sur scène avec une chemise presque transparente, les jeux de lumière la mettent carrément à poil sur la scène. Et ça correspond à un régime de visualité qui est lié à des effets techniques, ceux du théâtre, bientôt ceux du cinéma, mais aussi ceux de la photographie.
The male gaze is quite visible in fashion photography, in the lighting, in the poses, in the way that they bring the woman in front of the camera, as if they are so submissive. They have no will, they have no need, they have no soul inside of the body. They are putting the spotlights or soft lights on the specific area of woman body, on the specific area that gets attention, that you have to look at this part, not the other parts, because that's what I want you to look at. And I found it so ridiculous. I found it so shameful that it's this way, and it's everywhere at the moment. Yeah.
An interesting example of different parts of the female body being sexualized in fashion is the origin of the phrase 23 skidoo. If we go to the 1900s and think about that phrase originating, we get the story of the Flatiron Building, which is a famous triangular-shaped building in New York City. And because of its situation with the two avenues, the wind would blow along the sides of it, kind of whoosh around there. And at the time that this building was becoming famous and the wind was whooshing around there, there was a fascination and a sexual interest in catching a glimpse of a woman's ankles, which, because of the styles at the time, ankles and legs were covered in public. So, but when the ladies would walk by the Flatiron Building, which was on 23rd Street in Manhattan, when the wind would whoosh, their skirts would get blown and people would catch a glimpse of their legs. And men who were interested in such things started hanging around the Flatiron Building to get a glimpse of the ladies' legs when the wind picked up and their skirts got blown and their legs showed. So the origin of the phrase in that version of the story is that the constables and the police officers would hang around that area of 23rd Street and say 23 skidoo to get rid of the men who were there.
Il y a toujours eu de la spectacularité, une importance, un primat du visuel dans la culture occidentale, on va dire moderne, depuis plusieurs siècles, mais cette visualité s'est fortement accrue parce que notre société est une société de l'image et non pas spécifiquement du son, par exemple.
The male gaze in fashion industry is 100% about body. Like 100%, not even a little bit about the clothes or design. I would say it's never about the design. It's crazy. And it's just to like show that kind of body, show that kind of part, show that kind of femininity that they want to have, femininity. And it's never about design.
There's a long history, actually, of how designers approach the human form, particularly the female body, regardless if it's a male or a female designer. Some designers have consciously objectified women's bodies, intentionally highlighting sexuality, perhaps in part because the female body is often celebrated for its beauty. In the 1990s especially, the designers tended to over-sexualize women's bodies. This perspective is deeply rooted in a history where men held significant power in both society and, of course, the fashion industry. There were always more male designers than women designers, and they were shaping, or they are still shaping, the trends and norms that still persist today. I think we can see both, that designers are intentionally and unintentionally objectify the female body in fashion. I think this is partly because we have internalized the notion that fashion is about displaying the female body for the pleasure of others rather than for their own enjoyment or for self-expression or just simply the person who is wearing the fashion.
Suzanne Faloudi, dans Backlash, prend l'exemple de Christian Lacroix et de la manière dont les lancements des collections de Christian Lacroix dans les années 80, je crois, ont été des flops parce que ça s'opposait complètement à des modes plus fonctionnels, pratiques, professionnels des femmes. Donc finalement, leur donner aussi une autorité avait une fonction, alors que globalement, en tout cas tel que Faloudi le décrit, la mode façon Lacroix, c'est quand même la bonbonnière, quoi.
The plunged necklines of Maria, Munya, Veronica, and Katusha are strewn with roses as large as cabbages. Below the tightly cinched waist, the skirts swell like pumpkins and are raised at the back by 3 rows of lapels. These are the outfits of women who like to dress like little girls, says the fashion designer.
Unfortunately, the male gaze on fashion has lead to a very toxic beauty ideals, and we choose every morning very specifically what we're gonna wear, who we're gonna see, who we're gonna meet, who do we want to please someone or not. I do think that we are always subjected by the male gaze, no matter what we wear. Even if I'm completely covered and I have big silhouettes like today, if I go out, I'm subjected by the male gaze. That this is our life.
I did feel pressure in the fashion industry when I was working in it, and I'm still sometimes working in it, sadly, because you have to make money somehow, and it's very, very sad to do it. And like your boss or the person who is willing to work with you is not understanding anything from you, even though I'm a woman photographer, and I work in this industry. I had the example like in a fashion brand in Berlin, and they were quite ridiculous with it as well. Whenever they would model, like we got a model or we wanted to search for a model, it should have been the specific type of body. It should have been specific type of hair, or like it should have been so like a woman, a natural woman.
So when we're thinking about how the male gaze in fashion may have shaped the ideal body, it's easy to default to this idea that, oh, it's our biology and, we have 2 different genders and men are this way and women are that way. And men like to think of women who are small and easy to control, and women who have a certain bust to hip to waist ratio and a symmetry in their faces. And there is some merit to that, but the variety across geographic and historical human communities seems far more extreme than those easy explanations of just 2 genders and one biological profile of attractiveness would indicate.
Like, what is even that? What is even a natural or like femininity that they want to bring in the picture. I was always questioning it in myself. I also had some discussion with my boss, like, because I was bringing some cool, nice person to the place, and he would be like, no, I don't want them. I don't like them because they're not feminine enough. And I got really hurt by it because it was like, it's a pain to me and all the people like me, or all the women in the world. Like, somebody's sexualizing them in the most horrible way they can do, even though they can take a part in this industry and make it as if they are saying that they are open-minded people and they are willing to be better people and bring the future to a better place. They're also young as us, many of these people, but they're not trying anything except getting more money. And I feel like that's a shame. And I feel like that's quite not so fair to do that. Yeah.
So if we think about the male gaze and fashion models being considered beautiful or attractive or desirable, we need to think about the impact of that definition of the female form as svelte, as tall, as the fashionable form, as the ideal, and its relationship to how that affected everyone else who was not tall and slender and fashionable. So there is a long history of the fashionable ideal being embodied by the fashion model. And in a way, the fashionable ideal was by definition unattainable. The 2000s, like for instance, it reached the extremity of the fashion image, reached its apotheosis in the heroin chic of the 90s, which was embodied by an extremely slender, almost ill-looking fashionable image. And think of Kate Moss with her ribs sticking out, lying on a couch with almost no flesh on her body, held up as the fashionable ideal. And there was a lot of concern at that time that while fashion models had embodied beauty in a way that was more curvaceous and more fleshed out in, say, the 1980s, the only way we're going to be able to move away from the 1980s supermodel with her curves and her muscles and her fleshed out body is to go in the opposite direction, to the extremely slender heroin chic waif.
Et ça, ces critères-là, eux, ils vont être très très changeants. Et on a une histoire de la beauté, une histoire de la laideur, une histoire de ces différents critères dans le temps, dans l'espace, parce qu'ils changent aussi selon les sociétés et selon aussi les classes sociales. Parce que ce sont aussi des critères de distinction, comme le dit Bourdieu.
There was an effort to differentiate the fashionable in a way that associated it with upper class ideals. So at the origin of the fashionable image, there was a time when the curvy, sexy body was associated with more lower class types of bodies and types of interesting images, whereas the fashion image was seeking to associate itself with the upper class, with the socialites, with the people with money. And I'm thinking specifically of in the United States in the early 20th century, and the way that fashion was trying to appear associated with the slender, athletic, upper class body, the woman who does sports or rides horses, and appears to be not curvaceous, not overtly sexy, but in fact refined and upper class in a way that was not in your face in terms of the sexuality of the body.
Et ce male gaze, il va donc aussi fonctionner finalement comme Suzanne Faludi le montre dans Backlash ou Naomi Wolf dans le mythe de la beauté quand la beauté fait mal. Ils vont fonctionner comme des formes de corset intérieur. C'est-à-dire que le corset, on voit très bien ce que c'est, ce sous-vêtement qui restreignait très fortement les mouvements des femmes. Finalement, aujourd'hui, ce qui correspondrait à cette restriction des mouvements, ce sont des critères de beauté inaccessibles.
which many argued were damaging to young women because the only way to look like a supermodel or a waif would be for the rest of the 5'4", 150-pound average citizen would be to diet or exercise to an extreme degree.
Aussi éventuellement des transformations physiques, par exemple par la chirurgie esthétique.
Or to look at those images that are considered beautiful and find oneself lacking.
Ce ne sont pas des choses que je veux disqualifier, hein. Ce sont des choses que je remarque, pardon pour le micro, et qui vont se manifester en fait par un male gaze intériorisé et dont on n'a pas forcément conscience.
So the male gaze has brought a very harsh way of seeing women in this industry, and the way that they treated them, they got, like, even I got very low self-esteem from this kind of, just watching this kind of pictures and how they show beauty and how they show beauty standards, that you should be youthful, you should be flawless, you should be perfect. What is even perfect? Like, it's like something they chose for us. I see in myself, in people around me, that they are trying to be the standard beauties. Even models are struggling with their diets, with their way of living many times, and they are getting so many disorders because of just being the perfect image in front of the camera, that so many men decided to have those kind of image and have women as they are not, as if like they are robots or they don't exist. As I told you before, it's like people are always trying to get better and better and better and better and be perfect, do surgeries, do this, do that. And even with shopping, you know, it's like we buy more things to show our body in a certain way. Because of what? Because we imagined ourselves in the body of that person who is wearing that thing in that advertisement, which is not us, which is, maybe we are even not happy with having that kind of dress or buying that dress. Maybe it's so uncomfortable to wear it.
So when thinking about the digitization of fashion imagery, we also have to think about the history of retouching images and how it was that images that were taken as fashionable images that needed to look unattainable, how was that unattainable image achieved? So if we think of the fashion models of the 50s, for instance, we have the retoucher in the photography development room with a little tiny paintbrush painting away the hair on her chin or the wrinkle next to her eye. And it was a painstaking process. It wasn't done as easily as it is now, but it was fairly common, but it wasn't as easy to do. So now we have the ability, moving through the era of Photoshop, and now we have all these filters and these ways of making this image of fashion even more unattainable looking. We know it's a lie, but we also forget that it's a lie. So the filtering and the ability to create these very perfect images of femininity or fashionability or attractiveness has made the impact of those images even more intense.
I talked about the people behind the scene, how awful they are. They are just wanting to objectify the woman. But it's even affected the women, that they think that they have to be in this certain way. And if I'm not photographing them in a certain way, and I'm not retouching or making them even perfect, they are perfect how they are, but they want to be this image that it doesn't even exist in reality, that it's so untrue, that it's so not true, and they're putting pressure on you to make this part bigger, make this part smaller, take that. I had one very big challenge with the goddess person. She looks like a goddess. She looks amazing. She had one pimple on her face. One. I swear it was one pimple. And she was going insane because of that one pimple in the video. And I'm swearing to everything, you would not see that. No one would ever see that. But because of what? Because of all this pressure and everything that has brought us here. She was so mad that she decided to not work with me after that and put the photo shoot, no video shoot that they had together away and hire someone else who put the pimple in a different place. Which I think that really brought me to a place to think, like, what is happening to us? You know? Yeah, I don't know. It's just sad.
Ce male gaze, il va donc amener les femmes à se penser au prisme de leur beauté, ce qui évidemment n'est pas forcément le cas de femmes qui n'en ont pas le temps, hein, qui sont tellement exploitées qu'elles ne vont pas avoir le temps de penser en termes de beauté. Mais en tout cas, la beauté va être un des critères de validation dans une société patriarcale et un critère qui devient quand même globalement prédominant.
We are facing an immense impact on the mental health because like every day, 24/7, you get these pictures like how you should look like, how you should feel like, how your life should look like. It's not only your body, like how you should live your life. This is so stressful and we need to find a way to, I don't know, have a workaround around this because otherwise, I don't know what's happening.
Cette intériorisation du male gaze qui passe donc par une grande valorisation de la beauté et de la beauté féminine, parce que ce qui est important aussi de constater, c'est que il y a une différenciation très très nette entre les critères de beauté féminins et les critères de beauté masculins. Quand je dis féminin et masculin, c'est-à-dire qui s'appliquent à une classe de genre. Ils vont aussi avoir des restrictions assez dures, c'est-à-dire en fait il y a des sanctions sociales extrêmement dures sur la beauté quand elle arrive. On va quand même souvent supposer que les femmes sont un peu connes.
I grew up with a generation of women who were not allowed to dress sexy, wear short skirts, wear jewelry, wear nail polish, lipsticks, whatever. Because if you would have done it in that generation, you would be a cheap woman, you would not be intellectual.
Et quand une femme va avoir des apprêts de séduction qui vont sembler très voyants, elle va souvent être disqualifiée pour des raisons raciales et sociales, c'est-à-dire ça c'est ce qu'on retrouve dans la misogynie noire par exemple, ou également dans la catégorisation en cagole ou en filles populaires et avec une disqualification des beautés des classes populaires. Ça, c'est une chose que l'on retrouve déjà au XIXe siècle avec les typologies en lorette, grisette, c'est-à-dire pour qualifier les ouvrières, souvent urbaines, comme séduisantes, mais souvent toujours assez frivoles et en fait avec lesquelles on va avoir des relations sexuelles, avec lesquels des hommes, souvent bourgeois, vont avoir des relations sexuelles, mais certainement pas d'engagement plus avancé. Donc il y a des formes de disqualification qui vont apparaître et qui montrent que la beauté, c'est quand même aussi un double standard extérieur, c'est-à-dire que même quand on va remplir les critères, on ne les remplit jamais assez, et il suffit d'entendre les mannequins dire les complexes qu'elles peuvent avoir pour comprendre qu'on n'est jamais assez belle, et qu'il y a toujours quelque chose qui va dysfonctionner, parce que finalement, la beauté, elle va amener les femmes à s'auto-considérer comme des marchandises, mais à être plus largement considérées comme des marchandises, que l'on va donc pouvoir estimer, juger, commenter, éventuellement marchander, c'est ce que l'on voit aussi avec certains trafics autour des agences de mannequins,